Breaking right now, US superstar broadcaster Megyn Kelly has just exposed an editing scam on Meghan Markle's new Netflix series With Love Meghan that reveals the truth about who she really is.
Meghan Markle and Netflix, the royal love affair that turned into a PR battlefield. But what if the truth you were shown wasn't the whole truth? Today, we're breaking down the jaw-dropping revelations exposed by none other than Megyn Kelly, who's just pulled the curtain back on what she's calling one of the biggest editing scams in recent streaming history.
This is absolutely fascinating. Only an industry professional like Megyn Kelly would be able to pick it up. But trust me, this really says a lot about the woman we're dealing with. I'll get analysis from Brittany, editor of the Royal News Network, in just one moment. But first, Brittany, let's watch this big revelation from Megyn Kelly.
If you look at the first couple of episodes, every comment she makes is about herself. She's got her friend, Uncle Daniel's there. And then there's the Argentinian woman. And then there's a chef she brings in and Mindy Kaling. So there are no questions or comments about them, except there's one in episode 1 and there's one in episode 2. And if you go back and look at them, they're voiced over.
Really?
She clearly was told after the fact, you know, it might be nice if we kind of had you track like a question to Daniel about himself to set up that comment he made. And it's all voiceover. Anything she asks of the guest was laid in after the fact. You can see the break. It's like someone had to coach her on how to be a normal person who's an actual friend who has interest in something other than themselves.
Ka-ching! Whoa, Brittany! Meghan Markle has just been totally exposed by Megyn Kelly. Isn't that astonishing?
Oh, it's absolutely amazing that Megyn caught that. I definitely didn't. I was watching it sort of on a live stream, so I was kind of like half listening to the series, to be quite honest. But that doesn't surprise me at all. It's sort of, a bit of a magic you can use behind the scenes to sort of make Megyn look like she can actually engage with another human being in a sort of a normal fashion. Because what was fascinating about the series in some ways is that she comes across as incredibly awkward. She doesn't really know any of the people she's talking with. She's trying to make sure everything looks super perfect, and she just doesn't come across well in any of the interactions at all, really, that she doesn't really know them. And one time she sort of gave somebody like a backhanded compliment, I thought, where she's as beautiful on the inside as she is on the outside. And so I was like, what does that mean, Megyn? Because I could see it going a bunch of different ways there. So Megyn definitely does not have a good connection with most of the people who are on here. I'll be fascinated to see how things go with season 2. But I bet you the guy who's the producer behind the scenes, who she would interact with on camera a bit, he was, worked with Anthony Bourdain. And I bet you he's right now sitting in his office going, why did I take this job?
From misleading headlines to manipulated footage, this is the story Netflix didn't want you to hear. Let's dive in. When the Netflix docuseries dropped, it promised an unfiltered look into the lives of Harry and Meghan.
Because they're having to do a lot of work to make Megyn seem somewhat normal and a good host, because the whole premise of her show is that she is a good host, but you don't actually ever get that feeling that she is. She comes across as overbearing, awkward, so many different things. And so it's like, would I want to be hosted by Meghan Markle? Probably not.
Then Megyn Kelly, with her guest Maureen Callahan of the Daily Mail, had a fascinating take on the whole Mindy Kaling Sussex name moment. Let's watch together.
Mindy says to her, I just don't think that anybody really realizes Meghan Markle ate Jack in the Box. And you watch Megyn tense up. Right up, and the micro expressions and the jaw sets and the eyes go black, and her shoulders rise up, and she goes, it's so funny, and she's like chopping something, so it's like dangerous. It's so funny you say that. So funny you say that, because you know what? I'm Sussex now.
I'm Sussex.
Oh my God! It was like a soap operatic moment.
We have it. Let's watch it. Very weird.
Oh, and what follows that is she goes, our little family name.
Right.
Yet another dig at the royals that gave her that title.
Did you notice that at the end of every episode, it says, like the starring, Megyn, Duchess of Sussex.
Yes.
That's how she's billed.
Yes.
When the credits roll at the end, stand alone. Nobody else is on the page. But Megyn, Duchess of Sussex. Because they became Sussex when the Queen died and Harry's dad became king. And that's when Lilibet and Archie became Princess and Prince. And I guess as a result, their last name is now no longer Mountbatten Windsor. It's Megyn Sussex and Harry Sussex. I have no idea. And no, fucking Megyn, no one knew that. Like, why are you correcting? You know it's Sussex. No, I don't know. Who knows that? Literally nobody knows that.
And it's really interesting take, Brittany, from me hearing that from an American perspective, where they're like, oh, all of this weird naming protocol, why does it really matter? But presumably this is exactly what Meghan Markle wanted. She wanted this moment to go viral. She wanted it to explode, which it did, because she wants everyone to start calling her Megyn Sussex. And I guess Mindy Kaling was just the collateral damage.
Yeah, what you want in a conversation with a friend is for somebody to begin lecturing you about their name, which is exactly what Megyn did to Mindy. And Mindy didn't know, and Mindy was just trying to be funny. She was trying to sort of help Megyn be a little bit more comfortable. And then Megyn goes into this long soliloquy about her family name and everything like that, which was sort of a bit ridiculous. But yeah, Megyn does, to a certain extent, thrive on confusion. But I think this confusion isn't helping her because everybody's like, well, what do we call you? You're still calling yourself the Duchess of Sussex, but then you're also calling yourself Megyn Sussex. Which is it? Are you a Mountbatten Windsor? Are you not a Mountbatten Windsor? Where are we within this realm? But it's obviously she just is so desperate for the title, so desperate for the attention. And I would say if she really wants to be Megyn Sussex, then you can be Megyn Sussex, but you have to actually commit to the bit. So that means your billing has to be Megyn Sussex, not Megyn the Duchess of Sussex. So you have to actually commit. And it's still surprising that she's not putting the in there, because not having the in there going Megyn Duchess of Sussex is technically a divorced woman's name. So she's almost setting
well, I guess she's just setting her up for the inevitable, Brittany.
Yes.
Give it
so
a few
she's like
years.
already setting it up. So it's always there officially in her divorce title. So even if that changes, if she still has that part of the title, the show still works.
But many critics and journalists, including Megyn Kelly, started spotting red flags almost immediately. Carefully selected sound bites, dramatic slow-motion B-roll, emotional music swelling at just the right moment.
Do you know what? Isn't that just astonishing? Because it shows you that she actually doesn't give a damn about what's right. This is all about marketing. It's all about marketing.
Yes.
It's all about how she thinks this is the best way to market herself. Now, what I loved about this conversation with Megyn Kelly and Maureen Callahan is they did pick up on some things that I didn't, and they had a fascinating take on the whole Meghan Markle obsession with calligraphy. What?
Oh, good God. Keep going.
She got an A- in penmanship. She's clearly not over it. We're not doing straight A's all the way. It's an epic fail. She's handlining in soft pencil lines in her notebook instead of buying a notebook. And you can buy a very expensive notebook. Go buy Smithson, spend $400 on that line notebook. But no, she's got to line it herself. Again, what kind of time do you have?
Self-line.
Then she's doing that infuriating calligraphy.
I know.
What is she, 12?
I know.
I took a calligraphy class when I was 12. It was a way to kill some time. I didn't think it was going to be a life skill I would take into middle age. And then she's saying, this is a no fuss. She literally says, Megyn, this is a no fuss menu.
Oh,
It's
right.
within the reach of anybody. As she writes, like, whole wheat toast with estate honey. Honey from her goddamn estate.
She's
From
obsessed with her honey.
But she's obsessed that she's growing it on an estate in a manner that we can't see because we're just the great unwashed who are tuning in to supposedly, just roil ourselves in envy and feeling like failures because we don't have mini scissors.
And I absolutely, I loved all of that again. But I think what was best for me about this, Brittany, is Maureen Callahan perfectly summed up my frustration, which has been building over so many years. Like, get over your calligraphy obsession. It's embarrassing. I don't care. It's immature. It's like, is this all you've got? And I have the messiest handwriting in the world, Brittany. So maybe there's a little bit of jealousy, okay, because I was never a calligraphy kid. But please, God, move on.
Oh my goodness. I call it her fancy cursive because it's not like true calligraphy, more in like the medieval style. It's fancy cursive. And so it's sort of funny because that is the one thing that I think is Meghan's passion. She talks about hostessing and the show being her passion project and her heart song and everything. And I'm like, no, it's your stinking calligraphy because you have to put it on everything. Even that hat she wore in the renewal thing, it says, let us remain calm. So, lettuce as in lettuce.
Oh,
and then
yes.
but it's funny because just from a branding marketing perspective, you can't read it easily. So if somebody's walking around with the hat, people are just going to stare at you going, what does that say? I can't read it because it's too small. It doesn't work. And so it's just kind of crazy how obsessed she is with it. But again, it goes all back to what I noticed about this show. And you see it even in her Instagram here. It's all about the aesthetic. There's no heart or soul within it. Her show was soulless, I thought. And it's just all about looking good and nothing about, actually having connections with people because she didn't have connections with anybody on her show. But yeah, that hat is terrible. That hat is she's probably going to sell is terrible. Can't read it.
Calm. That's also terrible.
She did.
Now, oh, sorry, Brittany, you go.
No, real quick. She did this little thing on the blackboard. She says, oh gosh, breadily or not, here I crumb.
Oh, God, make it
if you
stop.
missed that. So she likes those little
the
food
worst puns in the
bad.
world. Now, what's
It's
interesting,
so
Brittany, so we have Maureen Callahan and Megyn Kelly doing the sort of take from powerful female journalists in the US. But their equivalents here in the UK, certainly on the royal beat, are two women who work for the Times called Roya Nika of the Sunday Times and Kate Mansi, who's of the Times of London daily newspaper. And on the whole, they're a little bit softer towards Meghan than someone like me. And they certainly have been much more favourable over the years. They're part of the royal rota, so they try and play that game, right? Which I've always been very opposed to. But what was very interesting, Brittany, listening to their discussion, they are actually as opposed to With Love Meghan as Megyn Kelly and Maureen Callahan were. So I'll get your reaction, but first let's just take a watch of this.
But what happens when you start digging into the sources of these clips? According to Megyn Kelly's explosive breakdown, some of the footage used in Meghan's narrative wasn't even from events involving her.
So it's really interesting. It reminds me of an article I read sort of in The Guardian that was sort of a think piece on it, talking about how, well, Harry and Meghan do need to make money, but is this the best route? And I think one of Meghan's key mistakes here in this series is that, like they said, like Roya said, she has proclaimed to be an advocate for women, that she's progressive, and all these sorts of things. And yet she does this very shallow and sort of vapid, housewife routine. And I think Megyn, at the end of the day, has sort of revealed herself after a period of time of not being the progressive female advocate that she claims to be. But really, at the end of the day, she's pretty shallow. She doesn't have, let's say, a ton to offer in certain ways, and that this is her world, to be sort of shallow, vain, and vapid. And so I think that's going to start rubbing people the wrong way, because she really should have maybe paired doing some of these things with going and being part of a protest, or, going to the library and reading a book or something to like make her seem more engaged, because she claims to never want to be a woman who lunches. And yet she did an entire show about women who lunch. So she doesn't really stand on anything that she has claimed to over the last several years. And I think she did herself and her potential audience an immense disservice by not living up to her own standards. And she does that constantly, and it really undermines her, I think, in the long run.
Now, Brittany, Newsweek have looked into the exact moment that Meghan Markle's show started flopping. This is really interesting, actually, because usually people like me get the blame over there in the UK. However, what Newsweek has actually discovered, and this is according to really detailed research, Brittany, is that it was actually American audiences that really pushed the show to the point of backlash and ridicule. So the positive responses were actually winning before the show's release, kept the lead for hours after, as British fans and journalists were frantically watching the show. But the balance between positive and negative posts dropped to net zero around 2 p.m. Eastern Time or 11 a.m. in California, where Meghan and Harry live. So that's really fascinating, isn't it? Because it feels like a lot of the hatred actually is coming from the American side of things. And you actually posted on this. Meghan had a handful of hours before the negative public reaction started towards her series. It's been all downhill from there. The noise may have garnered some attention and views, but what she needs is sales. That is the true metric. But what do you make of the fact, Brittany, that it looks as if more of the negativity is actually coming from America rather than the UK?
Well, I'm not really surprised at all, Dan. And it actually goes back to that previous segment of the reporters from the Times. I think Meghan has proclaimed herself to be one thing for so long, but yet we get this show and it's her fingers have been in it. She is the executive producer, she's the star, she's the one who's guiding and directing everything. And people were expecting so much more and they were let down. And I think in a time where egg prices are really high, there seems to be a lot of global instability. You see this woman in this, $8 million mansion who has a $16 million mansion down the street telling you how to, cut your fruit so you can put it in a huge rainbow. And they're looking, going, I can't even afford one box of strawberries, and you're showing off probably at least, 6 or something to that effect. I think she came across as way too out of touch. And when she was trying to say, oh, you could do this on a budget, and you're thinking to yourself, what budget? That looks incredibly expensive. And it's not just budget in terms of financial, but it's time too. Because I think Meghan did herself an immense disservice in this show by not acknowledging that she has housekeepers, she has nannies, she has assistants to do things for her. So yeah, she can spend an hour putting together a rainbow, cut up thing of fruit. But the average woman does not have that time, especially the average working mom. She has nothing in common with the average working mom.
Stock footage, paparazzi scenes from unrelated events, even media headlines pulled out of context. It's the ultimate sleight of hand, emotional storytelling wrapped in factual misdirection.
And it's sort of like somebody who's claiming, oh, I just worked out and watched what I ate to lose weight when they were really using Ozempic. And so it's like she's claiming to do all these things and trying to show this perfect existence while not acknowledging in the slightest, she probably has a staff of 10 to help her with the day-to-day things around her home. And so I think Americans watch that, and it's not totally aspirational. She just seems ludicrous and completely out of touch with the average person here in this country.
Now, Brittany, there's also a lot of fun being had with this series on both sides of the Atlantic. So I want to show you first a woman from the UK called Vanessa Feltz. She's a bit of a household name, sort of chat show doyenne, I guess. And she decided to make her own version with Love Vanessa. Oh God, I'm cringing almost as hard watching that as I did watching Meghan. And then the TikTokers have been having a lot of fun, Brittany, and some of these are just truly funny. Watch.
Having kids, I know how to work at a fast pace, so here we go. But first, a cappuccino. Hosting is a full-time job. It's not just for my actual guests. It's also for you in this rental studio. So I still enjoy the spontaneity of a friend saying, oh, I'll come and visit you. My house manager didn't open this. That's okay, we're going with the flow. Today we're also going to be making a fruit tort for his turtle. Jam is half fruit, half sugar. It's not jam, it's a preserve. It's a preserve. It's just so fun.
Oh my goodness.
I don't do measurements here because I like to cook with my heart, and you should probably do the same. That's good. You take a Ziploc. A Ziploc! You can get this anywhere. You never can give a gift without a bow. Now you've created a one-of-a-kind preserved salt bath bomb with a candle and a bow. It's just fun. It's just fun.
So, was Megyn's Netflix doc a heartfelt exposé, or a masterclass in media manipulation? One thing's clear, the glossy surface of royal storytelling has officially been cracked open. Thanks to people like Megyn Kelly, the truth is catching up. Stay sharp, stay skeptical, and I'll see you in the next one.